present to you our weekly masterclass with industry leaders. The intention of this masterclass is to bridge the gap between sales professionals and industry leaders and give you that opportunity to interact with them live. And we have been doing this for the past 2 years, and we will keep doing this every Saturday, 12 p.m. So please do block your calendar every Saturday, 12 p.m., so that you don't miss out on any of the masterclass. For today's masterclass, we have with us Mr. Jeevan Fernandes, a person whom I got connected after seeing his Toastmasters video on LinkedIn, right? He's currently the president, if I'm not wrong, of the Mumbai Toastmasters. Uh, and apart from that, coming to his professional experience, Jeevan is currently working with ekincare in the wellness industry, and he's the senior manager of enterprise sales out there. Previous to this, he was working with companies like WeWork, CBRE, HealthifyMe, and has been in sales for almost a decade now. Without further ado, we would like to welcome Jeevan. And first of all, thank you so much, Jeevan, for accepting our invitation for the masterclass. Warm welcome from our end.
Thank you for that warm introduction, Ronit. Appreciate it, and my pleasure. I am eagerly looking forward to address the 34 enthusiastic individuals, 33 because 34 includes me. A very good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. At the outset, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out on a Saturday, and that to a Saturday afternoon. I would rather, if I were you, I would rather be sleeping. That's what I love doing on weekends, especially on weekend afternoons. But thank you. The fact that you all are here on a weekend listening is a testament to all of y'all being on the right path to upskilling, enriching, and empowering yourselves. So thank you for that. Now, before we get to business, I thought I will share a little bit more about myself. Ron has done a good job with the introduction. I'll share a little bit more, perhaps to lend credibility to who is this guy that you're listening to. And then we'll get to the business side, which is sales fundamentals. My name is Jeevan, and I've been in sales, like Ron had said, for a decade now. Now, sales is a fun profession, but it's also a pretty hard profession. And hence, it's important when you're in sales, you're constantly talking to your colleagues in sales and the people that aspire to be in sales. So I've sold real estate, I've sold co-working, and most recently, I'm selling health technology. So my sales career essentially spans three industries: real estate, co-working, and currently health technology. Because I've been doing this for a decade and I've been doing this across industries and different personas, which is different clienteles across industries, I've amassed unique sales perspectives. While perspectives are unique, what I've realized in my sales journey is there are principles, or you can call them tenets, that remain universal. Whether you're selling shampoo, whether you're selling MacBooks, whether you're selling a car, there are few principles that are, according to me, just foundational to sales that all of us need to know. And quite honestly, I wish someone told me those principles when I started, because I learned them the hard way. I learned them by failing, by trial and error. So those are the principles that I'm going to be speaking about in the course of my presentation. There are 5 principles. And what I'm also going to be doing additionally is backing each principle with a sales war story, which is a story from my sales life. That way, you get to benefit in real time from my experiences. Also, I'm glad we're at 45 people now, 44. I would like to make this session highly interactive. You don't need to switch your videos on. However, what I will be doing is, after every principle of mine, I'll be opening the floor up for questions from your end, concerns, comments. Even if you want to disagree with me, I'm happy to have an exchange on this platform. Let's make it super interactive. I don't want it to be me speaking for 40, 45 minutes and then opening it up for Q&As. No, I'm going to speak on every principle, shut my mouth, and then hear from you and perhaps have a healthy exchange during. So that's the format we're going to follow, super open. Something else I'd encourage is if you have any specific sales queries in mind, you can make a note of them in your notepad if you have one next to you, notepad book, or you can simply drop them in the chat. If I don't cover them in the course of my 5 principles, I'll cover them in the Q&A at the end of the session. I hope we are good to go. Yeah, awesome. Let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. Ronit, just confirm once you're able to view my screen.
Sure. Yes, Jeevan. I can see your screen.
Great. Let's get started with the first fundamental, which is listen. Yeah, Ronit, we're good, right?
Completely fine.
Yeah. Well, let me actually take an audience poll, or let me actually ask someone from the audience here. I see Stanley. So Stanley, Ronit, if you could help and unmute Stanley. Stanley,
Yes.
I could ask you, according to you, between the ratio of listening and talking, how much, when I say listening to talking, I'm talking, let's say, is sales 50% listening, 50% talking, 40% listening, 60% talking, 30% listening, 70% talking? What, according to you, is the ratio of listening to talking in sales?
Am I audible?
Yes, Stanley.
Yes. So I feel is that in sales, 70% is listening, and 70 to 80% is the listening, and 20% maybe the talking. And from that 20%, I feel that 10% should be for understanding. Like you should have questions to correctly understand the requirements, the persona of the client, everything. And then, according to based on that, we can talk. That is the 10%. Like, so 80% will be the listening. That is what I feel.
Yeah, you're spot on, Stanley. 70% is listening. You've also, I see someone in the comment mentioned 80%. So the jury is out, but sales is 70 to 80% listening and then 20 to 30% talking. And this research is quite fascinating because when you enter the sales world, you assume that you will just be talking, pitching, and selling. And that's not the case. In sales, your first order of business is listening. Now, when you join a sales organization, there is a process called discovery. When you meet your client for the first time, you ask him or her a set of questions. The questions usually revolve around the budget, authority, need, and timeline. And then you have further questions after that. According to a research, and of late, I've been obsessed with data. According to data, the most successful sales representatives invest the most time in discovery. So let's say they have a 1-hour call or a 1-hour meeting, 20 to 30 minutes is invested in discovery. Discovery is nothing but you asking the right questions to your clients and your clients answering those questions. Because when you ask the right questions to your clients and you listen to them loudly, I know we're used to the term talk loudly, but when you listen loudly, you recognize the problem statement of the client. You recognize the pain, you recognize the exact requirement. And that will only come from listening. So in sales, 80% to 70% is listening, 20% to 30% is speaking. Let me supplement that with an example. I was on a virtual meet with a pretty large Indian organization. And I say pretty large, in our world, 10,000 plus employees is large. And we got talking. I was getting to know her and I finally got to what she was looking for. And I asked her, this client kept stressing that, Jeevan, my organization is going through a lot of transitions. My employees are under a great deal of stress. They need someone to talk to. Transition, stress, need someone to talk to. And she made these 3 statements thrice in the course. And that was a pretty long discovery. It was at least in the 1-hour call, 30 to 40 minutes, I was just listening to her, asking the questions and listening to her, where she brought up these 3 salient points. Now, this product that I sell, ekincare, essentially is an application. It's an aggregator app that sells everything health and wellness. So we've got health checks, we've got doctor consultations, we've got gym service, we've got ambulance on demand. Anything health and wellness, we offer on the app through our partners. Because I heard her, and as I say, because I listened loudly, employees are going through a transition. There's a lot of stress and they want someone to talk to. The only service line that made sense to her was the mental wellness piece or the employee assistance program. And that is all that I spoke about. That's all that I spoke about. Mind you, we have 15 odd services and the pitch itself takes 45 minutes. But because I heard from her that they're only looking at this particular, because I heard the problem statement from her, I listened loudly. I realized that from our 15 services, there's this one service line that addresses this problem statement. So that's all I spoke about, and we got into the roots of it. That is the beauty of listening and listening loudly. So every time you're with the customer, ensure, at least when it's the first few meetings, ensure that you're the one listening and the other one talking. If you're the one talking and the other one listening, clearly there's something wrong. Yes, there are clients that don't give out much and say, show me what you have, I'll then let you know. But that's 20%. If a customer is serious, they will tell you what they want and you will tailor your service based on their requirement. So when you look at this principle of listening, you realize that sales is not essentially about selling, but it's about addressing a problem. But you will not know the problem until you heard your client out. So the number one principle in sales is listen and listen loudly. And based on what you've listened, you match the product or service of your organization that addresses that need. So that's on the first principle, which is selling, or rather listening. At this point, I'll open the audience up for if any one of you have questions, if you have concerns, if you disagree with me, I'd like for you to raise your hand and we'll have an exchange.
Yeah, people can just raise their hand by going to the reaction section below. Yeah, Kirti.
Yeah.
Kirti, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Kirti.
Hi, Jeevan. My question to you is, you just mentioned about the 15 products or services that you have, and that would take about 45 minutes or so to pitch. Would this be advisable to do, or how do we cut short that to keep the conversation more on the client side?
I couldn't agree with you more, Kirti. It is impossible to do. Even 45 minutes isn't enough time. And that's why when I meet clients for the first time, I press, I probe, and I poke them for the need. If someone comes to me with a clean slate, it becomes extremely hard because I'm investing most of my energy and I don't know if that energy will reap rewards, right? So I'm pressing my clients, hey, I got a lot of products. It'll take a lot of time. Tell me specifically what you're looking for, or even tell it to me in broad strokes. That way I can tell you which services or products suit you. That's something I do in the discovery. 80% of the times I get a response on what my clients are looking for. But yes, you have the 20% or the 20 odd customers that say, hey, Jeevan, just tell me what you have. So in that case, I can't really help it. I've got to go for the whole pitch. What I try and do is, in a nutshell, cover all the 15 services. I don't go in detail. And if there's any service that piques their interest, I then dive deep. But I'll say that's the occupational hazard of the sales profession. Not everyone on the other end, which is the client, is going to be kind enough and tell you the requirement. Some people will just say, tell me what you have. And based on that, I'll tell you what I need. I hope that addresses your question, Kirti.
Sure. Thanks, Jeevan. Another thing was about tonality. Could you just let me know how the tonality would shift conversations here?
Okay, when you say tonality, Kirti, could you specify? When you say, you mean the tone of the individual selling, or?
That's right.
Yeah, honestly, just what's worked for me is humility in the tone. Whether it's in good situations, bad situations, whether the client's being not very nice, clients being very nice, you maintain a consistent tone, something like what I'm doing right now. This is the same tone I maintain when I'm on client calls as well. That works. I think humility in the tone would be my answer, because that's how I go about it. And being a little stoic, regardless of whether you get the sale or no, whether the client is nice to you or no, because that's not in your control. But as a sales rep, you have to be consistent with your client.
Completely agree. Thanks, Jeevan.
Yeah. I see Rajesh with a question. We'll take Rajesh's question and then move on in the interest of time. Rajesh, go for it.
Thank you, Kirti. Rajesh, if you can unmute yourself. Rajesh, if you can unmute yourself, I have enabled that. Rajesh, if you can go to the bar below in Zoom and unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, Jeevan, we can proceed with it. We'll take Rajesh's question later.
Rajesh's questions a little later. Yeah. Great. We'll move on to the second principle, which is... One second. Ronit, you can view my screen, right?
No, not yet. It was still trying to share the screen.
Excuse me.
If you can try once again.
You'll be back. How about now, Ronit?
You have started, but unable to see it.
Okay, it's showing me.
Yeah, I can.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Great. The second principle is owning your product. When a sales rep knows the ins and outs of his product or her product, when a sales rep intimately understands the product or the service they are selling, it inspires a greater deal of confidence on the other side, which is two clients. A practice 5-star hotels follow is every time they onboard a sales rep or every time they onboard an employee, they give them unfettered access to their portfolio of hotels. Let's say there's the Taj group. A Taj employee, obviously a white-collar Taj employee, will enjoy unfettered access to Taj amenities. We're talking suites, we're talking the bar, we're talking the pool, we're talking the food. Why? Because these employees are representing Taj and they are selling Taj to prospective clients, right? Now, if as an employee of a 5-star hotel, I don't know what life in a 5-star hotel is like, or what staying in a 5-star suite is like, or what an infinity pool, what drinking by the pool, or what dine-in service is like, how can I sell the product? How can I sell the service? How can I inspire confidence in my customers, right? So all of these 5-star hotel employees are highly empowered in that respect, and they own their product. And because they own their product, they can recommend suites, they can recommend foods, they can recommend restaurants to the clients coming in. That's the beauty of owning your product. Another example I'll give you here is that of Starbucks. If you've ever been to a Starbucks outlet, and I'm sure all of us have at some point, the baristas are the employees or the Starbucks partners at the outlet. They know, they're all coffee nerds or coffee passionates. They know their coffee inside out, their coffee and their food. So when you're talking to them, you're talking to an educated individual about coffee. You tell them, Ronit, today I feel like having something a little less acidic, something that's strong. They will give you recommendations, right? Because these guys know their product inside out. In fact, Starbucks baristas today even conduct these mini workshops at their outlets where they invite you, sir, can I show you something? That's the beauty of owning your product, because when you own your product, you inspire confidence in your clientele and you can even recommend what to go for. All the organizations I've been with, at least the product organizations, including WeWork, HealthifyMe, and ekincare, all of these are product organizations. CBRE Cushman were service organizations. It's always easier to experience the product when you own the product. So when I was with WeWork, HealthifyMe, ekincare, I'll speak about ekincare and HealthifyMe. They are apps. And the moment I joined the company, I began extensively using the apps. even before, in fact, at HealthifyMe, even before joining the company, I used the applications. Now, when I've used the applications and I know it intimately, during client calls, when there are technical questions, and you will get technical questions, you will not be able to address the questions until you've experienced the app, the product, or the service yourself, right? That is the importance of owning your product. So whatever you're selling, whether it's an Audi, whether it's a shampoo, whether they're a pair of headphones, whether it's coffee, you need to first experience the product yourself. I tell people, you need to sell the product to yourself first. You need to be sold on the product first before selling it to customers. And when you sell the product to yourself, you will have questions. You need to address those questions and then go back to your customer. So own your product. That's the second principle. You don't want to be in a position saying, sir, I don't have an answer to this right now, but let me come back to you. That is the worst point in any sales rep's life. You need to have the answers at the tip of your fingers. And the only way to do that is by owning your product intimately. Here, I'll stop and we'll take one question in the interest of time. And then we'll move on to the third principle. So any questions from the audience on owning your product?
Rajesh wanted to ask a question. Rajesh,
let's pull Rajesh up.
Rajesh, can you unmute yourself now? Yeah, Rajesh, please go ahead.
Yeah, Rajesh, good afternoon, sir. This is the previous time I raised the hand. At the time
Yeah.
it is log out. So again, I logged in. Previous question was what emotion we should have while talking to the customer while sales.
Yeah, great. So Rajesh, thanks for that question. That's a lovely question. I partly answered it in the first round. While humility is important, I'll say something else that your clients appreciate is passion, energy, animation. It is, you want to meet a sales rep, you want to meet someone that's high on energy, that's passionate, right? Because passion inspires passion, energy inspires energy. So I'll say passion and humility, both the same time, are emotions that you need to harbor while selling your product or while talking to a customer. Because a client will always appreciate someone with high energy and with infectious passion. Yeah, we can take Amit's question now. Ronit, if you would unmute Amit.
Hey, Amit. Yeah.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, Amit.
Hi, Jeevan. There is a question. We deal in real estate. So we have 130 products only in Bangalore. So 130 projects. So it's very tough for one salesperson to mark up and experience all the products and things. So what do you suggest for that?
Fantastic question, Amit. I've been in real estate, so I empathize with your pain. As Ronit mentioned, I was with CBRE and Cushman, although I was in retail. What I would do, Amit, is, and I'm assuming you're you're either with a developer or you're with a broker. What I would do is, while at WeWork, because there were pieces of information that I didn't have access to, I would carry an iPad with me. In your case, you can carry an iPad or a notebook. And that any technical questions, when I say technical question in the real estate world, it'll be square foot or square feet. How much is a square feet? What's the carpet area? What's the built up area? How many floors? What's the FAR, right? All of these you can make a note of, and it'll be there in every brochure for residential and a commercial project. You can, because these are hard to remember and we tend to forget or misrepresent them, you can simply keep them handy with you. All of these basic pieces of information. And when you're meeting a customer, if they ask you, you can always refer to it and give them the answer. They'll always appreciate that over someone that doesn't know the information or is giving them false information. So there is no harm carrying out leaflets, or an iPad is the best because it can capture everything. It can save everything. So carry an iPad that covers all the essential information and give that to your client. So I hope that addresses your question.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Ronit,
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Let me know once you're... I guess the screen share is taking a little time because it's live. So yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Now I can see that. Yes.
Great. The third principle is knowing your customer. This is perhaps my favorite because while in sales, we are all behind deals. Behind the deal, which is representing the deal, are people. And those people are humans at the end of the day, right? I know in sales, we're all about targets, numbers, prospects, but we need to empathize that behind that deal, behind the rupee value, whatever, 10 lakh deal, 15 lakh deal, there is a person sitting. So what I do is, in Know Your Customer or KYC, there are two elements here. One is the element of the customer, which is, let's say Ronit's my customer. And if I were to do a KYC on Ronit, there is Ronit, the individual, and then there is Ronit's organization, which is the Juno School of Business. Now, I need to do my research on both those. I need to know Ronit inside out, and I need to know Juno School of Business inside out. So what I would do before meeting Ronit for the first time, I would look Ronit up on LinkedIn. Today, 95% of the world is on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been promoting that they have 1 billion members, which is fantastic. Of the 1 billion, 850 million are from, 100 million are from India. So chances are everyone's on LinkedIn. I look Ronit up on LinkedIn. I look at Ronit's education. I look at the firm Ronit was with, Ronit is with. How many years has he been with the firm? I also look at mutual connections. What I'm essentially trying to do here is find common ground. If I have a common connection with Ronit, during my interaction with Ronit, I'll say, Ronit, you and I are connected with Rajesh. So how do you know Rajesh? That's me making an attempt to break the ice with Ronit before I get to business. Or I say, Ronit, so I see that you're part of this group called Toastmasters. Or you follow the Bill Gates page. I love Bill Gates myself. I follow his book recommendations. I'm essentially finding an opening with Ronit before I get to business. And Ronit will appreciate that, right? Ron will be like, okay, wow, let's speak more about it. I break the ice and then I get to business. That's the beauty of knowing your customer. So when you're meeting someone for the first time, you need to do more research on the person you're meeting. Of course, you need to do research on the company as well, which is when it was founded, the founders, the business model, revenue, if they're in the news, all of that. But the first meeting or the first couple meetings, you need to know the person representing the brand more than the brand themselves. As the meetings progress, the person itself will inform you about the brand and you can do your research. But you need to know the person you're selling to. And I always like to do a little more research about the person because everyone likes to speak about themselves. Everyone likes to know and sing praises about themselves. Dale Carnegie says, our favorite word is our name. So imagine I made an attempt to know Ronit better. Ronit will appreciate that and he'll perhaps be more favorable to me in a sales dealing. So that is the third principle, which is knowing your customer. There are two aspects here. The customer itself, which is the human, and then the organization. You need to do your research on both, and LinkedIn pretty much does the trick. If you want to do a little more research on the company, then you've got to look if they are in the news, whether it's the Economic Times, Times of India, Hindu, Business Line. Check if they're in the news, read their articles so that you're informed when you're speaking to them. That's on Know Your Customer. I'm going to stop my screen share and invite questions at this point, if any.
Yes, last time I think Yashodhar had raised his hand. Yashodhar, are you there? Would you like to? Hey, Yashodhar.
No, just that I completely agree with what Jeevan is saying. It is always helpful to do background research before you meet the customer, before you reach out. This is what we have learned in Juno, the earlier master classes also. It's very helpful and it also builds your confidence. You know whom you're talking to. You feel already related to that person. So this is a very great way of approaching or starting the conversation because you know something about the person. You are already connected to that person. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Got
you.
it. Channa Basawa, if you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. Actually, see, my question is, just now we discussed about what are the preparations we need to make, like while meeting the customer, like studying about knowing the customer. And when we pitch in for the first communication, it is equally important to know what to ask and what not to ask, actually. So, are there any key points which you recommend not to pitch in directly during the first meeting?
Yeah. So, Channa Basava, that's another lovely question. In the sales world, there is this acronym that we follow: BANT: budget, authority, need, and timeline. What
Yeah.
in my experience, the one thing customers in India are very shy about are budgets. They almost always never tell you price. I that's how the Indian mentality is. But if I were to give you, yeah, so budget is one. If you don't get budget, authority. When I say authority, are you the decision maker? If you want the decision maker, what's the hierarchy like? If you're speaking to the administration official, his boss, which is head of admin HR, and then the HR's boss, which is say the CEO or the CHRO, what's the hierarchy like? So that's the first, which is authority. Then is need. Need is what are you looking for? What is the actual requirement? Let's say, Amit's in real estate. Someone's looking at 10,000 square feet of office space. That's the need. 10,000 square feet of office space in BKC, in Mumbai. And then there is timeline. Timeline is by when are you looking at picking this up? Do you want it by the Q4 of this year, which is December 2023, or do you want it by the Q1 of next year, which is March 2024? Right? So budget, which is what's your budget towards the product. Authority, where do you stand in the pecking order? Need, what is your actual ask? And then timeline, by when do you want it? So these four are staples when you're having a conversation with the client. And then depending on the industry or in the product you're selling, you'll have more questions, but BANT are the staples.
Yes, thank you.
Great, thanks, Channa Baswa. We'll move on, Ronit. Okay, so I see we can actually take another. We'll take Ankur's question.
Okay, thanks, Jeevan. Ankur, if you can.
Yeah, good afternoon. I have one question that we know my product, we know my customer. But what's the ideal time? Main thing in sales is the follow up the thing. So my question is, how many times we follow, or how many? What's the time we should wait? What's a mode of communication to follow? That's what thing I want to know.
Yeah, that's a $1 million question, Ankur, if not a $1 billion question, because no one has written enough about it. No one has spoken enough about it. But the way I go about my follow-ups is I ask the client, right? In my first call with them, I tell them, once I've shared a proposal, should I follow up with you within a week, within 2 weeks? I ask this and I keep it open-ended, and they say yes. If their answer is yes, I follow up with them within a week. A few customers say, you know what, Jeevan, we are closing our books, we are doing payroll, blah, blah, blah. So reach out to me in a month's time or 2 months' time. I reach out to them in 2 months' time. It's important when you're interfacing with a customer and you've shared the price to establish when you'll be following up. So you tell them upfront that, Ankur, now that I've shared the proposal with you, I'm going to call you sometime in the next week. I hope that's all right. Right? So that's you affirming or them confirming that you will follow with them next week. And when you call them next week and they sound a little surprised that, oh, you're following up, you tell them, hey, Ankur, so you said you asked me to follow up with you in the coming week, right? So I thought I'd give you a call. What you're doing here is the context from last week, you're extending it to this week. So the client is not like, aap mujhe call kyun kar rahe ho? I'm calling you because I asked you if I can call you in this week and you said yes. So every time I call Ronit for a follow-up, I say, Ronit, we spoke last week and you said now would be a good time to follow up. So where are we on the deal? So Ronit can't say, call me later, because Ronit itself confirmed, call me in a week. So that's the way I go about following up. But ask the client when would be a good time to follow up. Establish that. Clients will say 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Don't follow up with me. I will come back to you. Respect that and use that when following up with the client. That's my advice on follow-ups.
Yeah, thank you, Ankur. Jeevan, we have a few more questions. If you're comfortable, we can take them.
We'll take them. We've got some time. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Hi. Most of the times we think that it will take time, okay, maybe a week or month or whichever it is. So, but there are some times when the customer needs it now. Okay. For example, I was enrolling for a course. I was trying to communicate to that coordinator, I need to get into this program now. So, if but the pain is that if the person was listening to me, he would have enrolled me into that program immediately. But this, because there was a gap in listening, so I missed out on a few sessions of that class. Instead of that same week, I got enrolled in the next week or 2 weeks later. So there was a gap. So I believe as a salesman, I have to listen to the customer's requirement. Maybe we apply the band and we really know, even pay attention to the last word time. So with respect to the customer, when does the customer need the product? If the customer needs a product right now, we have to deliver right now, not later, or think that maybe we'll give some time to the customer to think over it, ponder over it, check the budget. But when the customer is saying, in little words, we have to listen. So that's the point I wanted to make. It's not always a delay or later. Sometimes it is now. Just wanted to make that point.
Absolutely, Yashodhan, and I couldn't agree more. Going to my first principle, listen and listen loudly, and honor what the client has to say. So thank you for bringing that lovely point up. Yeah. We
Sure.
can pull
We'll
up.
move to Atif. Atif, you can unmute yourself. Thank you, Yashodhar. Atif?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question is a little bit, I think, different. Sometimes customer respond certain words like I'm not interested, call me later on, don't call me or stop calling me. How we can respond or befitting reply in such a situation? I mean, scenario based reply. Any?
Yeah. So, no. Once you're done, Atif.
Did you get my question?
I did very well. Yes, this happens and happens too often, as much as I'd not like it to happen. And that's why I say, Atif, that sales is a very humbling profession. All the ego that you have goes away when a client says, I'm not interested, don't call me again, who gave you my number, and all of that. What can we do? The answer honestly is nothing, because if client isn't interested, you can't change their mind. And you shouldn't change someone's mind if they don't have intent in the first place. So if someone says, Atif, not interested, don't call me, blah, 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 we swallow our ego and we let it go. That's what I do. I get it a lot, but that's the life of a sales rep. Don't respond, accept your fate and move on to the next deal. I'd rather you invest that energy in pursuing more deals, more interested people, than convincing someone that's not interested at all. That's my philosophy when it comes to responses.
Great. Thank you, Atif. Jeevan, we can move to the next slide.
Yeah, one more. In
Okay, sure. Please
continuation of
go ahead.
Yeah, in continuation of the same. So sometimes company has given me the target, like you have to close, but many such responses I am getting. So is there any other way to handle such kind of responses? Suppose in one account, 10 persons are there, CIOs, CTOs, chief digital officers are there. So I'm into Microsoft product. So we are into Microsoft Dynamics cybersecurity as well as one feedback gathering platform. Software is there. So I am doing that one. So for one certain account, we collect 10 persons. I mean, we do profiling of at least 10 persons minimum, like CIO, CTO kind of things. So one person said this. So shall I move to other person in the same account to understand what exactly, whether there is any requirement or that person is not the right person to contact?
Yeah. So what you're doing, or rather what you're doing is called multi-threading, Atif, and that is the way to go about it, where within the same, let's say I'm selling to Apple, within the Apple organization, I'm looking at 10 different individuals and I'm socializing and networking with these 10 individuals. Chances are the CTO, the CIO won't give me time, but an associate will give me time. So this is a great method. Obviously, I gather that you're in enterprise sales. When you're in consumer sales, you don't get to do this because the companies itself aren't that large. But when the ticket sizes are massive and companies are large, you multi-thread. So this is a great approach. I think when the majority, let's say of the 10 people that you've tapped, 6 people say no, you know that you have to move on. But if you observe an opposing voice where 5 people say yes and 5 people say no, then you know that there is a little scope and you can turn their minds around. You can convince them. So to me, a 5-5 would be a symbol that, okay, I can convince them. Someone in the chat wrote psychology. There are several methods to convince them. But if the majority is saying, I'm not interested, Atif, then you're better served by moving on to the other account. Yeah, I hope that addresses your question.
Exactly. Because majority matters. So if majority are saying something wrong with that, maybe budget is the constraint, or maybe not looking for such kind of solutions. Exactly correct. Thank you. Thanks for the insights.
Thanks, Atif. We'll move on now to the 4th principle. Yes, so that's know your competitor. Now, none of us operate in a monopoly. We all operate either in a duopoly or multiopoly, if that's even a word. There are several competitors in the market. And when a client is meeting me, the client's also meeting my counterparts, which is everyone selling the same product or service. Chances are at any given point in time when you're selling your product, there are 10 or 5 other sales reps selling the same product to the same client. Hence, it's important to know your competitor. In my experience, products and services in the same space largely remain the same. 80% of the time, we offer the same thing our competitors offer. Of course, what differs is pricing, a little bit on product quality, turnaround, but 80% is the same. The 20% differentiator is something you need to know where you have an edge. For example, ekincare. Now, in the space that we operate, which is wellness, health and wellness, our competitors are Practo, Visit, Connect and Heal. These are competitors in the same space. All of us, we do the same thing. Someone is cheaper, someone's more expensive, someone's turnaround is better, someone's network is perhaps more superior. But more or less, like I said, 80% are the same. The 20% edge that ekincare has is that we have a patented dashboard. And this dashboard is, you can call it very much like we have HR dashboards like Keka and Darwinbox. This is a wellness dashboard where whatever is happening on the application, the employers, which is the HR folks, will have access to. Let's say Stanley has utilized a doctor consultation. Ronit has gone in for a health check. Someone else has utilized ambulance on demand. The HR will have real-time access through that dashboard of the usage of these services. You have usage, you have analytics, you have demographics, you have several dynamic features. Now, I know that this is what ekincare has that my competitors don't have. So every time I'm in front of my client selling my product, there are clients that ask you upfront, Jeevan, how are you different from your competition? And that's when I say it. Even if clients don't ask you, it is imperative that you highlight how your product, your service is superior than the market, which is your competitors in the market. Because at the end of the day, it is that 20% that will give you an edge over your competitors. So whether your clients ask you how you are different or how are you better or not, make it a point to highlight how your product or service is superior when compared to the rest. And call it out. Say, this is something that only we offer. Our competitors don't offer it. That needs to be etched in their minds. So that is knowing your competitor. And for that, you need to know what you offer versus what your competitor offers. So that's about know your competitor. I will pause here and invite questions or comments, if any.
Yeah, Suraj sir had a question. Mrs. Suraj Mahiwal, 1 second. If you can unmute yourself, would be great.
Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Sir, I am Suraj Mahiwal from Chandigarh. सर मैं LIC के बिजनेस में हूं और मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि सर मैं कैसे HNI को रीच करूं लाइक यू पीपल.
ठीक है. That's a great question, sir. What okay. There is one suggestion that I would have is ये बहुत सारे groups होते हैं छोटे छोटे. जैसे एक business, I don't recall the name very much, but there is a group there's a business group that meets up हर Sunday या हर
BNI, like BNI.
Correct. That's correct. The business networking. ऐसे ना बहुत सारे groups होते हैं. Toastmasters is another group.
Yes, sir.
Right? तो इस groups में आप network कर, and these are deliberate networking sessions where people are open to networking. अगर आप किसी के घर पे जाओ और पूछो सर आप ये लोगे, no one's interested. Closed door है वो. At these networking sessions, people are open to networking. तो आप एक तो ये जो BNI और BNI की तरह जो networks है आप उनको टैप करो, वो एक है. और सर दूसरा conferences. हाँ, और दूसरा conferences. So I'll speak in both English and Hindi because I see the comments. There are a lot of conferences that happen that give you a pool जो आपको एक high network individual का pool देते हैं. Obviously you'll have to pay a little money, आपको पैसा देना पड़ेगा इस conferences को जाने के लिए, but you'll have to go to these conferences to meet these people. आप conferences और बहुत सारे forums है ऐसे, HR forum, insurance forum, आप follow कर सकते हैं. और जब भी कुछ कॉन्फ्रेंस होता है वो आपको बोलते हैं कि ये कॉन्फ्रेंस है ताज पे, ये है लीला पे, we have a conference happening at Taj at Leela. I think so one to summarize would be these business groups. There's something called Networking Now India as well. There are different business groups. आपको थोड़ा रिसर्च करना पड़ेगा. Toastmasters भी है, वो एक अलग ग्रुप है. और फिर कॉन्फ्रेंसेस बहुत अच्छी जगह है नेटवर्क करने के लिए. तो सर ये दो चीजें आते हैं दिमाग में when it comes to tapping high net worth individuals.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
ठीक है.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we move to the next slide, anyone else who has a question can raise their hand. Okay, someone has written in the chat, sir, can you advise some of the name of profession? Okay, we already spoke about those names.
Yeah, so I'll just
BNI, Toastmasters. Yeah, please, Jeevan, please go ahead.
So very quickly, Abhijit. So BNI is one. Then there's the Dimples also posted Networking Now India is another. Then there are these entrepreneur groups. There are different entrepreneur chapters in every city. You need to, I believe these are membership based, but you need to look them up. And then there are also groups for every industry. Agar aap insurance mein ho, there's an insurance group. If you're in real estate, there's a real estate group. ऐसे बहुत सारे chapters होते हैं. You need to research a little bit on that. But on top of my mind, BNI, NNI, Toastmasters, these are good forums. There are entrepreneur conclaves as well that you can subscribe to. Yeah.
Mr. Manish has a question. Manish, if you can unmute yourself.
Sure, thank you. Hey, Jeevan. So my question is actually, if suppose I get a new customer, right, and how to do customer analysis. So it is not just limited to the individual who is the customer, but more of company or industry analysis. So what are the different sources apart from LinkedIn? I heard that you said LinkedIn, but apart from that, what are other sources where I can collect information about my customer and their need?
Sure. So Manish, LinkedIn is the first filter where you get to know about both your customer, which is both the individual and the company. I will then say to get to know more information about the company, you go to the company's website. That's the second. Read up about the company. Third is follow the company on the news. If it's a listed company, what are they trading at? What has been impacting their share price? If it's a private company, what are their revenues? Have they picked up funding? What these companies usually do is if they are featured in the news, they will have it on their website. They will have it on their web page. So that will be my third, which is follow the company on the news channels, which is you can either Google the news, or if whatever your source of news is, Economic Times, Times of India, Hindu, Business Line, follow them there as well. And one more thing I'll add is tap your network and see if anyone is in touch with this company. Let's say you're talking to L&T, because L&T has several. Let's say you're talking to L&T Financial Services. See if someone in your network is working at L&T Financial Services or has served L&T Financial Services as a client. Have a word with them. Ask them what it's like dealing with L&T. How long did they take? How is the company to work with? Are they good when it comes to paying on time? Are they what's the tenure they deal with. I think that's another one. So to summarize, after LinkedIn, you have the company webpage, you've got the news outlets, and then you pick the phone and speak to people that have either served the company, are working with the company, or know the company. When it comes to the individual, LinkedIn is pretty much enough. LinkedIn gives you everything about the individual. And so with individuals, LinkedIn is good enough. And like I said, India has 100 million people on LinkedIn. So chances are 98% of the people are on LinkedIn. So you can do your research about the client on LinkedIn. Great. So we'll move to the last bit, Ronit, which is the last principle, which is relationship first. Now, this is my favorite. This is my favorite because in sales, in the earlier slide, I said that when you're meeting your clients, chances are the client along with you is meeting 5 or 10 of your competitors, right? And the client is tired of listening to the same product, same service, same price, more or less same product, service, price. And they're listening to the same thing from 10 or 5 different mouths. So what gives you an edge? Being relationship first gives you an edge. I'll give you an example. 2 months ago, I was on a virtual call with a client of mine. This was a pitch call. It wasn't a client yet. I was on a virtual call. And during that call, I heard a lot of barking. There was a dog barking in the background. So there was a pretty long call, 1.5 hours. And I just happened to mention the client, so, the dog seems to be very eager to join our call. I just said that jokingly. And then he said, oh, Jeevan, that's actually my dog. I hope that's not disturbing. I said, no, not at all, sir, not at all. And then I indulged him. So, which breed is your dog? He said, my dog is a Shih Tzu. I said, oh, wow, you're into small dogs because Shih Tzu is a small, petite breed. He's like, no, I had a golden retriever, but, he passed away, and hence I've got a small dog now, which is the Shih Tzu. And his name was Simba. He also told me his name. I asked him for the dog's name. And we got chatting for at least 2-3 minutes. We got chatting. He was telling me, Simba's getting restless lately. His mother's not at home, so I've got to take care of him. And we built a relationship. So before going back to the call, which is because this happened during the call, before going back to the call, I said, sir, I'd love to see Simba. His video was off. So he said, sure, I'll WhatsApp video call you after our meeting ends. And I said, sure. Now, I wasn't really expecting him to WhatsApp video call me. I really wanted to see his dog. And I said it. After our meeting ends, he WhatsApp video calls me and he shows me his dog. And Simba is a lovely, lovely looking dog, very cute. And you should have seen his face. His face was lit up. Obviously, I couldn't see his face during the business call, but I'm sure it wasn't as lit up as it was now because he was talking about himself and his likes, which is his dog. And I have a cat myself, so I showed him my cat and we bonded over that, right? Now, let me come back to the last principle, which is relationship first. This same gentleman is speaking to 5 of my competitors. Which competitor stands out? Jeevan or the other 5? Right? Jeevan has made an attempt to build a relationship with me. So I would obviously privilege Jeevan over everyone else. Right? So that's the beauty of being relationship first. Business batein hoti rahegi. You're going to continue talking about business. You're going to continue selling. And trust me, all of your clients are tired of being sold to. They're listening to the same thing from everyone. So you being relationship first, which is actually caring about their life, about their aspirations, about what they enjoy doing, will give you an edge against your competitors. So that's the beauty of being relationship first. And I want to end this by saying that in life, and this is very true, this is a research, they say you're either relationship oriented or you're transaction oriented. Now, I am relationship oriented, and that's why I lead with my heart before my head. And I always strive to build a rapport with anyone before I get on a call. That way I get to know them, I get to break the ice, and then get to business. So you need to figure who you are. You can't be in the middle. You can't be a hybrid. You're either relationship oriented or you're transaction oriented. And in the sales business, relationship always wins. I authored an article on LinkedIn yesterday which says, You may lose the deal, but don't lose the relationship, right? Now, a deal, for example, I lost a deal just on Thursday, and I was bummed because I worked on that deal for 2 months. It was a pretty sizable deal, but I am still maintaining my relationships with the client, because it's not entirely in the client's hand to give me the deal. There's a management involved, there's a budget, there are several parameters that go into a yes or a no. And there's only so many parameters that I can influence. While I've lost the deal, I've retained the client, and the client, I'm sure, will be happy to come back to me if things with the competitor, whoever they've gone with, doesn't work out. They'll be happy to recommend other clients to me. I've built my goodwill with the client because I'm relationship first and I'm nurturing that relationship. So that's the beauty of being relationship first. Even if you lose the deal, you don't lose the relationship, you don't lose the client. So with that, we come to an end to the fifth principle and also the workshop. So I'd like to invite questions for the fifth principle, and then we can open it up for questions at large on everything sales.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jeevan. So people can raise their hand and we can take a question one after the other. Okay. People, if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand. I think in the chat, we have mostly answered all the question.
Yeah, I see
Okay,
Rajesh.
Rajesh. Yeah. Rajesh, if you can unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
sir, previous question I asked what emotion we should have while sales to the customer. You told energy and passion. Can you give example for passion, like what passion we should have about the product or about our self-confidence or our experience?
Yeah, so Rajesh, I hope I represent passion when I speak, because when I say passion, when I say energy, when I say enthusiasm, what I'm doing is what I mean, right? When I talk, I'd like to believe when I talk with a lot of passion, a lot of energy, a lot of animation, and I'm very interested about whatever I'm speaking about. So if I had to give you a reference, not showboating or showing off here, but I would want someone to be like me, or perhaps higher on energy and higher on interest. That's so to give you a reference, me is what I was talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and don't want to be too immodest, but there's no other reference I can give at this point, hence.
Okay.
Thank you, Rajesh. Any other question? Okay, Indresh has a question. Indresh, please go ahead.
Hello, sir. My question is, there are some situations in technically we don't know the answer. So at that time, usually we'll say we will get back to you later. So how to say, because you told never say, that's not the right statement to say. So how we need to pitch in, sir, in those cases?
Yeah, that's a good question, Indresh. Ideally, we should never be in a position and say, I'll come back to you later, idly. That being said, we don't live in an ideal world. There are times that you may not have a technical answer. For example, I'm totally fine if me or anyone in this room doesn't have an answer to a technical question. There are product related questions, there are software related questions, there are IT related questions. If you don't have answers to that, you can be willingly and gladly saying to the client, hey, Indresh, I'm a sales guy, I don't possess knowledge around IT. That being said, let me schedule a call with our IT team such that they can address your questions. Or why don't you drop me an email with all your queries and I'll have my IT team respond. In those situations, it's totally fine to not have the answers, which is because that's out of your control. But when it comes to the core product or core service, then you have to have the answers. I would encourage you as much as possible to not give yourself any excuses, or you'll always say, let me come back to you. If it's technical, if your engineering team is involved, your operations team is involved, that's totally fine. Then you tell them, Ronit, I will have to consult with my operations team and come back to you. So let me come back to you in an hour's time. That is totally fine because that's outside of your control. But for anything that's inside your control, you should have all the questions or rather all the answers. And you'll have that when you experience the product intimately. So yeah, Bala had a question.
Bala, if you can unmute yourself, yeah.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for joining. Let me join. So my question is that is there any difficult situations have you ever faced in your life on sales in the real estate field, and how we handle that situation and close the deal, sir?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bala. So yeah, I've been in several difficult situations. I chose not to speak about it, but I believe at the end of the day, we're all products of our failure. So to speak of one incident, this was back in the day, 7-8 years ago, when I was so this was an ice cream brand at a food court. I believe I'd gotten the commercials, which is the deal structure, the price of the kiosk wrong, and the client wasn't too happy about it, right? I told the client, you're supposed to pay X, but the client at the meeting with the developer, which is the owner of the mall, realizes that he has to pay X plus. So the client wasn't too happy about it. I realized that I screwed up, and I screwed up royally. The way I got out of the situation was I was vulnerable. I said, look, sir, this is my first time doing it. I'm terribly sorry. Let me know if there's anything I can do. If I can negotiate this price further down, I'll do that. Or, let me give you, if you continue. So at that point, there was nothing I could do to salvage the situation. What I did say was, what, sir, given that you are bearing a loss on my accord, on the next deal, let me give you a haircut on my consulting fees. So on the next deal, I won't charge you anything. Obviously, he said, that's fine. I don't want that. I just want you to do your job better. So what helped me in that situation, Bala, was just being vulnerable, being honest and saying, sir, I screwed up. I'm sorry. I should have done better. This will never happen again. That is one, being honest. And second, offering a solution. Being honest isn't enough. I offered, sir, I'm willing to let go of my brokerage on the next deal. So, which the client said, that's too much. Don't worry about it. Let's just ensure this doesn't happen again. So yeah, Bala, that's one odd situation where I made a massive error, and I was humble. I offered a solution and got myself out of it. So I see Ankur with a question. Yes,
thank
Ankur.
you, sir. Sir, that was well explained by you. But also, I'm a UG student currently, and I want to enter into the sales field. So, is there any valuable advice for the the freshers to enter into the sales field for the first time, like handling of losses, making profits, etc.?
Yeah. So Bala, my advice to you there would be go with an empty cup, and when you join sales, listen, learn, and observe as much as you can. Whoever you're with, when you just start your sales career, you'll be shadowing someone, your boss or your colleague. Learn as much as you can from them. Talk less, listen more, be curious, and ask as many questions as you can. Your first 3-6 months are going to be formative and will lay the foundations of your sales career. So talk less, listen more, and yeah, I think that would be my advice. And whatever the 5 principles that I spoke about, practice those as well. But in your early years, observe, listen, learn, and then talk later. Yeah.
Thanks, Jeevan. We'll take Ankur's question.
Yes, sir. Sir, at last point you talk about relationship, basically towards the client. But we also have made relation with the competitor also, basically when we deal with FMCG or real estate. So at a time happened when you visit to distributor retailer, your friend also sitting there, and he's pitching his sales there, and you have a counter offer also there. But what should we should do? We should show the professionalism that at that point I counter offer, or just I wait, it just go off, then I pitch my sale to distributor or retailer. What to do at that point? Because I have to make the maintain relation with both, because off the track, we always meet at the chai sutta bar, everything, everywhere.
That's a very unique situation to be in, Ankur. I hope majority of us don't find ourselves in those situations. I honestly don't have an answer, because whatever solution I offer you will either antagonize or piss off your client or your competitor. If you ask me, if I were you, I would rather piss off my competitor and not my client. Right? So, do whatever you have to do to get the client on board. Your competitor isn't paying you your salary, isn't paying you your bonuses, isn't employing you. Your client is. So if I had to choose between the client and the competitor, I'd always choose the client. So I hope that addresses your question. I don't have a solution, but I had to pick between the two. I would pick the client over the competitor, because the client is why I am a sales rep in the first place. They say, right, in Hindi, agar client nahi hai, aap nahi ho. So
Yeah.
you can't say the same about the competitor. If the competitor is not, if the competitor is there or not there, then it's irrelevant. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Shipra.
Thank you, Ankur. Shipra, if you can unmute yourself.
Hello. Hi, Jeevan.
Hi, Shipra.
So basically, it's just to add to what you have been saying, since I have been on the other spectrum of the chain, like I have been into the purchase. Right now, I've shifted my career into sales. I feel the additional point to any of the people setting, which I'm implying currently in my career as well, is post-sales service. That is absolutely very essential, because as much as you are a representative of your company to your client, you become a representative of your client as well as in your company. The post-sales, service is a very ideal factor to keep a long-term relationship with the existing client, is what I feel.
Yeah, that's a very salient point, Shipra, and I'm glad you brought that up. So in our business and in the sales business at large, we have the sales reps, and then you have the customer success manager or the account managers, where, let's say, the moment I've won Juno School of Business as an account, I hand the account over to my customer success manager, who will essentially ensure that Juno School of Business is happy, everything is in place, all queries are addressed. So in sales, at least in the business I'm in, we are specialists. We only sell. And once the sale is done, the account management, which is the relationship harboring, is done by the customer success manager or the account management team. But point duly noted that while you've sold the product, you need to ensure the same level of quality, if not higher, when it comes to servicing the client on the product or service. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Shipra. Anyone else who would like to ask a question? Because there are a few questions I would like to ask Jeevan and put him on the spot for spontaneous answers. So yeah, let's go ahead with that. Okay, so Jeevan, first of all, the bookshelf in the background, right, is very intimidating right now, because one of the question is on books. So first question, top 5 books that all sales person or professional should actually read.
All right. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That's a book that, whether you're in sales or not, you have to read. It's about relationship building. Second would be a book on sales. It's called Spin Selling: Situation, Problem, Interest, Need. Spin Selling. Third would be this book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F, F-CK, by Mark Manson. Then also, that's the third. Fourth would be on sales. I'll say read one of Grant Cardone's books. Grant Cardone is this If you heard of him, he's big in America. Read one of his books. He's got several books, 10x, Growing, and all of that. And the fifth one would be, I'll say, pick up one of the autobiographies of CEOs, because all CEOs are, at the end of the day, sales reps. So if I had to give you, maybe I will recommend the autobiography of Bob Iger, the current CEO of Disney, the global Walt Disney. The book is called The Ride of a Lifetime. So those are the 5 books that I would recommend.
Got it. Apart from these sales specific books, right? 3 top books which you feel that every individual or working professional should read.
All right. So one would be, okay. I'll give you 3 more books. Mind Without Fear by Rajat Gupta. So Rajat Gupta is a man I deeply respect. He was the managing director of McKinsey back in the 90s. This was before Indian origin CEOs became popular. Today, we're all talking about Satya Nadella, Aman Bhanga, Indra Nui, Sundar Pichai, Shantanu. We're all talking about them, but this is, these guys became CEOs now, 2010, 2000s. This guy was a CEO in the 80s and the 90s. So it's a book about his life, Mind Without Fear by Rajat Gupta. Second would be, I will be hard pressed to add How to Win Friends and Influence People here as well, because that is a book you absolutely must read. You just have to read it. How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the third book would be, I would say, I'll say you can read another autobiography. So Trevor Noah's autobiography is pretty good. I'm just gonna, Trevor Noah, let me just tell you the name escapes me at this point. But yeah, it's called Born a Crime. Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. The reason I recommend that book is Trevor Noah is a really massive personality today. He was in India recently, but he's gone through a lot in life, and he went through it in racist South Africa back in the day. So to be able to come out of such adversity and to have such a positive sense of life and a great sense of humor is why you should read Trevor Noah's book. And he's an excellent writer. So yeah, those are the 3 books I'll recommend.
Great. Would you like to cheat and maybe look behind and give us some other names?
So this is actually my wife's shelf, Ronit. Yeah. So I do most of my reading on my iPad, but yeah. So this book here, Ayn Rand is a pretty popular author. Atlas Shrugged, Fountainhead, 2 of her super popular books are must reads, but they're pretty long. And yeah, the rest is fiction. I wouldn't recommend fiction to anyone. Fiction's for entertainment. I read for education. So books that I recommended are good reads. And I have an Excel sheet. I have an Excel sheet. So happy to share that with the.
Oh yeah, definitely. Please do share that.
I'll share that
session. Yeah. So the next question would be, what are the traits of a successful sales professional?
All right. So I'll give you 3. One is being on top of things, whatever it is, internally, externally, always being on top of things. I would like to say be one step ahead of the client. That is one. Second is humility. You need to really, really ground yourself, because you will have good quarters, you will have bad quarters. Be humble throughout, be stoic. That's what I learned from my idol MS Dhoni. He's always humble. And third would be, which was something in my book, be relationship first. Be relationship first, because I'm telling you, I've met a lot of sales reps. If I take the entire sales world, only 20% will be relationship first. So if you're one of that 20%, you stand a much stronger chance of winning deals, building relationships, and moving forward. Everyone else is transactional. If they realize a deal value is small, they won't even pick the client's calls. Don't be that person. Be relationship first. Respect the client for who they are, and you will go far. So these 3 traits will take you far.
Got it. The next question would be, what are the tools that every sales professional should learn or should be well versed with in 2023?
Okay, and Ronit, I'm assuming by tools you mean like human skills, right? Or not tech tools?
Tech tools.
Tech tools, fair enough. LinkedIn, you need to know how to operate LinkedIn. It is good if you have a sales navigator profile. Atif is in the enterprise business space. You need sales navigator for organization mapping. A sales navigator is a great tool which will tell you how long Ronit has been with the firm, who's Ronit's boss. It does all of that mapping for you. So sales navigator. And sales navigator, another excellent feature is if you're not connected with someone on LinkedIn, it helps you drop a message to that someone without being a connection request. They're called in-mails. You get 50 in-mail credits. So sales navigator is one. You need to know the tool. Second, I would say is Lusha or Mr. E. Lusha or Mr. E essentially gives you mobile numbers and email IDs it's an extension to LinkedIn. You download it as an extension to LinkedIn. You need to buy credits, obviously, something your employer will give you. And it gives you, if I want to reach out to Ronit, I don't have Ronit's number on LinkedIn. Lusha and Mr. E will help me with the number. That's number two. Third is you need to be tech savvy in general. Every sales firm will have some CRM software. So whatever it is, Salesforce, Pipedrive, HubSpot, Zoho, you need to have an acute understanding of CRM tools because you will need to maintain CRM hygiene and everything. Your projections, your numbers will be on the CRM tool. So the CRM tools are equally important. While it's an internal tool, you need to know how to operate this tool. Yeah. So those three.
Okay. In sales, it's all about targets, right? So Jeevan, you as a sales professional, how do you plan and reach your targets on day one of that quarter?
Yeah. So what I do, Ronit, is I believe in taking baby steps. So let's say I've got a target of 10 CR for the quarter 4, which is this quarter. I take baby steps and I try as much as possible, try and break that 10 divided by 3, right? So for October, I've got X, November X, and then December X. O&D is then 10 crores. That is one. Second is I look at my, I look at my pipeline and see if I've got enough deals to justify the 10 crore target. In sales, a metric is of the 10 deals you have in your pipe, only 3 will go through. So I'm ensuring that my top deals have enough to justify the 10 crore. If I don't have enough, then I add more deals to the pipeline. So that's how I go about it. Baby steps, break it down, marry the target with the deals I have in my pipeline, and not all the deals because that would be delusional. Only, like I said, the top only 3 deals of the 10 deals, hypothetically speaking, convert. So I take my top 3 deals or my top 5 deals and ensure it aligns with a 10 crore target value. So that's how I go about my targets. It's all about pipeline management. So you need to really manage your pipeline.
Okay. So nowadays, a lot of calls, now sales call happen over Zoom or a telephonic call, right? So, but what's your best way to convince people or any technique that you use to convince virtually or over telephonic calls?
For starters, keep your video on. If you're a sales rep and you're selling with your video off, I don't think you're selling. It's a shame if your video is off. When you're selling, yes, you can't help if your client's video is on or off, but your video needs to be on always. That's one. Second is, remember always, and this is something I believe, selling in person is always going to be greater, better, and stronger than selling virtually. So this session would be a lot better if we were in person. Recognize that fact. So what I'm doing right now is I'm expending so much more energy and enthusiasm to make up for that. So that will be the second, which is just be energetic, enthusiastic. That's 2. Third, something I did today, engage with the audience. It's hard to engage with audiences when videos are off. That's why what I did very strategically was after every principle, I opened it up. That is me engaging the audience. It's not me going one way with my dialogue or other monologue and then saying if you have any questions at the end. I'm engaging you throughout. In a meeting, you can see the audience, or you can see your 1, 2, or 3 people. You can see how they are reacting and you can respond accordingly. I can't see that here, right? I can't see that on Zoom. I'm sharing my screen. There are like 4 videos on. I can't help it. So engagement helps. So those would be my methods to sell virtually.
Got it. How to manage a challenging customer?
Oh, that's another $1 billion question. You will always find one such or several such customers. I hope you don't find several. I really, in my view, try and understand why the person is doing what he or she is trying to do. Are they trying to exhibit superiority? Do they want to make it look like they are the best clients in the world? Don't respond to their idiosyncrasies or to their weird traits, but just acknowledge it, right? There's not much you can do. Like I said earlier, you can't have an ego. You can't respond saying, sir, this is not cool. I don't appreciate this. I mean, you can, but then you antagonize losing. You may just lose the deal. And he may take it or she may take it the other way. So I would say, while it sucks and it's going to be hard, chew all of that negative energy, acknowledge it, and try and get to the point as much as possible. That's how you deal with a challenging situation. Every challenging client is unique in their challenge. So try and identify what it is. Acknowledge you really can't deal with whatever they're throwing at you. So acknowledge it and then move on with the deal. That's how I'd go about it.
Okay. Yashodhar, will come to your question. Just give me maybe a few more minutes. Jeevan, how do professionals or sales professionals, to be specific, improve business communication?
That's a great question. Business communication, if you observe this, the moment you look up the hierarchy in any organization, the people on top speak better. When I say better, it's not better English. They articulate better. They're more informed. You feel like listening to them, right? And that's where we all aspire to be. So business communication is a function of several aspects. I think one is consistently learning, and you can learn by, so when I say learning here, I'm talking about upskilling yourself about the world, which is I read the papers every day to know what's happening in the world. And when you read the papers, 2 things happen. Your worldview is shaped and your vocabulary is enhanced because you're reading the papers, you're picking up words. So that is one. Second, I would say would be to listen to people that you look up to. You may look up to an individual from a communication standpoint. Listen to that person often, either through podcasts, interviews, listen to them. And at the end of the day, when you've listened to them enough, you'll realize you've become, or you start speaking like them, which is not a bad thing at all, which is good. So that is 2. 3, I'll say forums like Toastmasters definitely help because you get real-time feedback. Every time you go on stage, you get feedback about how you've delivered, how the audience is feeling when you've delivered, your vibe as an individual, as a personality. You get real-time feedback on several parameters. So yeah, a third would be Toastmasters.
Okay. The next question would be how to manage your boss in a sales environment.
Oh, that perhaps is the $1 trillion question, because in sales, it's all about numbers and they will be breathing down your neck. The good thing is, if you are done with your numbers or if you're on track with your numbers, you don't have to deal with your boss because your boss won't bother you. But if you aren't on track or with your numbers, if you haven't done your numbers, then they will, or he or she will be breathing down your neck, which you can expect because someone is breathing down their neck, right? This pressure is something that cascades from the top. I would say in a situation in the latter where you aren't at par or you aren't on course doing your numbers, show the boss your effort. Like, okay, yeah, my numbers aren't happening, but look at the work I'm doing. It's not going to take the pressure off, but it definitely is going to reduce the pressure that's coming on you by telling them, hey, look, I'm doing my bit, but things aren't working out. Hopefully they will turn out the way I'd like them to turn out in the next quarter or in the next month. So showcasing effort, when I say showcasing, I'm actually talking about documenting efforts. Look, Ronald, I've done so and so meetings. I've reached out to 100 clients. I've done 15 demos. Documenting, quantifying your effort to your boss when you're not doing well in terms of numbers helps in easing the pressure. When you're doing your numbers, the boss won't care even if you're at work because you've done your numbers.
Got it. Last two questions, Jeevan. What's your best objection handling technique?
Yeah, so, okay, that's a great question. There is no single objection handling technique, but something I believe in doing and something that I've done here is I empower the client. So the moment, for example, every time you ask me a question, I say, that's a great question, or that's $1 million question. What I'm doing is I'm acknowledging the question. And every time the client has a question, obviously that comes from a place of curiosity. And when I, as a sales rep, is acknowledging and even admiring their curiosity, they appreciate it. So you see a lot of CEOs when they're doing interviews, they say that's a great question, right? And when the moment you say great question, the client feels empowered. So that's my way of going about objection handling. I tell them that's a great question. I mean, that's a universal starter. And I then get to the question. Or I sometimes even go to the extent of saying, okay, so you're one of the types who are very curious or very nitpicky about the product, right? And I love that about my customers. Something on those lines where I'd like to say, for lack of a better word, marinate the client and then get to the answer. So yeah, I think empathy is what it is in a nutshell, as Stanley said. But yeah, just acknowledging the objection and then getting to the objection and respecting the objection for what it is.
Okay.
I think one thing you shouldn't do in objection handling is belittling it. If you say ye to kuch nahi hai, I think that's a no, like just no. However little or large the query, respect the query, acknowledge it, be empathetic, and then move to the solution. Don't belittle it at all, because you don't want to make your clients feel small. Make them feel big for a small query, but don't make them feel small for a small query. Don't. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So my last question. Career is a 40 years marathon, right? And definitely we spoke a lot about what are the things that you can improve in sales, in your habits or your techniques. But apart from all these things, apart from work, what are the habits that a professional should have outside work, which impacts or creates an impact 3x on that professional's career?
Sure. So I'll tease out a few here on it, because what we do after work essentially contributes to what we are at work, right? We don't live two lives. While we say professional and personal, we are one personality. So reading, when I say reading, I'm talking about reading across. I'm talking about books, I'm talking about newspapers, I'm talking about articles. Reading is a trait that gives you an edge. Always. Reading is one. Second would be talking to people. When I say talking to people, while you're speaking to people inside your firm, speaking to people outside your firm as well, getting different perspectives. For example, my wife is in the talent management space in Bollywood, and I'm in sales. These are two different worlds. But when I talk to, I get perspective. I have friends that are in different industries. You talk to them, you get perspectives. You don't want to be holed up in your, whatever, pharma sales or tech sales. Yeah, that's a good space to be. But it's good to have a holistic perspective on things. That's the second. And third thing is mentoring. I'll say this is perhaps the more important. Having a mentor, having someone that you speak to often. It doesn't need to be every day. It doesn't need to be every month. Consulting a mentor, a set of mentors, and a mentor, someone who is essentially 10 steps ahead of you, 10 years or 5 years ahead of you. I'd say 10 years ahead of you. Someone that you're consulting on, I don't know, once every 3 months, you're speaking with, who's able to tell you if you're going in the right direction or no, who'll be able to answer your questions. Because there's no one better to answer your question than your mentor. And your mentor essentially is someone you see yourself as in 10 years or in 5 years. I'd like to say 10 years. So mentoring would be the third. These three things will amplify your professional journey. I wouldn't say 3x, 10x. Even if you do one of these three, your chances are your colleagues are not doing it. For example, I'll take this call. The 39 of us or the 38 of us on call are already 2x on our career journeys because chances are your colleagues aren't doing it. Right? Now imagine you add 2-3 more things to that, you increase your chances 10x. Just remember that it's the effect is a compounding effect. So you may not see it in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but the 5th year, 6th year, 7th year, you'll witness compounding benefits, right? So things won't happen right now. They won't happen instantly. I know we're all used to instant gratification. They'll happen gradually, and when they happen, it'll happen big. So that's the compounding effect. Yeah.
Got it. So yeah, thank you so much, Jeevan. We have one question from Yashodhar,
Yes,
who actually raised his hand. Yashodhar, are you there on the call?
I
You
think
can
Yashodhar has
unmute.
been the most enthusiastic. So thank you, Yashodhar. You've asked the highest number of questions, and I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here with Juno School of Business because sales is one thing which I've been always distancing myself from. Because I didn't want to go into that zone. But finally, I put myself into this program to learn more because I started reading all these self-help books because of the company I am. So they recommend and they motivate me. And the first thing I saw, Juno School had a sales program. I put myself into this. So it's exciting journey so far, and I'm looking forward to more. There are two things I wanted to share. One is the connecting with the customer on a relationship level. You spoke about the pet of the customer. Okay, so I used to distance myself from the pet issue because I dislike dogs, especially because there's no particular reason as such, but I I feel some people overdo it because I see some clients putting their pets picture as a profile picture, which is very irritating and annoying for me. Okay, but so then I choose not to talk about it. Okay, because it might show up in my conversation that I'm not genuine. Okay, so I chose not to talk about it, but luckily for me, my next door neighbor bought a pet recently, and I couldn't show my disliking, and also at the same time I wanted my kid to like the pet. Okay, so I started talking to the pet. Hi Kitu, how are you? Did you have a breakfast? Did you this? Did you that? Where were you all this time? This started reducing my disliking towards pets and really helped me in starting conversations in other spaces areas of my career. So that is one thing. And second, I think two most common things are pets and kids, and these are the two most common things which is easy to pick up and give a heart out and connect. Second thing, which Ronit spoke about, the challenging customer. I just want to add, and I'm also experiencing such customers because I'm on the after the sales team has done their work, I'm on the servicing and delivering part. Uh, I'm facing one or two abusive customers. Okay, it's very disheartening at times because in my mind the first thing that comes up to my mind is I did not sign up for this. Okay, so but then I don't respond, I don't react to that person. I just say okay, I will look into it, please give me some time. At certain times the annoyance is real for that person, but they tend to over exaggerate it, the was a problem. But like you said, don't belittle it. That is one learning I'm taking from that your conversation. And second thing I take from your conversation is that be on top of things. Okay, I feel at times that I am on top of things, but actually I'm not, because I am lazy in that part. I acknowledge myself that I am being lazy. I wait for my sales team to give me information. It is your job to give me information. That is, and I sit on it, and then when I'm start delivering, these things come up because they have a conversation. I'm not aware of that conversation, and I have to face this challenging customer. So I thank you for sharing that. So I will take up being in conversation with my sales team more often and getting weekly updates on each client, so that I'll be able to deliver better, connect better, and not have a lesser challenges with these customers. Thank you so much. Sir.
Thank you so much, Yashodhar. So yeah, once again, Jeevan, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and giving us your time over the weekend. It was wonderful hosting you, and definitely the enthusiasm that you mentioned, right, over a virtual call that you showed, and the energy that you brought on this call and this masterclass, right? We really appreciate that. So thank you so much once again. I hope you also had fun delivering this while we had it while listening to you.
Well, absolutely, Ronit. Thank you for inviting me. It was my privilege and pleasure. Thank you, everyone. I learned as much as I gave out, so thank you. And yes, I hope you'll all go on to do great things in sales. And yeah, let's be in touch. I'm on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you folks. Anything I can do to help. If there's anything I'll need, I'll also reach out to you. So thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time. Have a good weekend. Cheer for India tomorrow. And yeah, Ronit, thank you once again. Back to you.
Yeah. So, everyone, please do follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, because we keep posting about all the masterclass and all the small snippets from this masterclass there, so that you can create an environment of learning around sales. And please do connect with Jeevan. He has been tagged on all our posts for the last 1 week. So he's there. So please do connect with him. If you want to take any conversation forward with him, please do take it forward. And yeah, thank you so much. That's it for this week. Once again, let me reiterate that this effort from our end is to bridge the gap between all the sales professionals out there with industry leaders, so that we want to give that opportunity to you to come on this call, interact with the leaders who have been there, done that, learn from the experience, and skyrocket your career, right? So we would keep doing this, and we have been doing this for the last 2 years, and we keep doing this every Saturday, 12 p.m. So please do block your calendar. Follow us on LinkedIn so that you get updates on these events. And as Jeevan said, right, we will contribute to your compounding journey of learning. We'll keep doing that. So thank you so much once again. This is Ronit from the marketing team of Juno School of Business, signing off.
Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye,
Thank you
Ronit.
so much. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.